Welcome back to Talking Marvel, and in this video we'll be looking at the comparison between MCU movies that have just one villain or threat and MCU movies that have two, which are typically better. Guess you'll have to stick around and find out. Some people like when there isn't a lot going on and the plot is clear and concise with one villain, but others like the intricate storylines and connections that two villains or threats in an MCU film typically provides. Personally, I'm in the second group, as I would assume many Marvel fans are, since the writers leave us with so many things to connect and dive into anyways. I think it's easier to break it up into phases as the MCU evolves, and it typically changes when they turn over a new leaf to a new phase. This way we can compare movies that have one or two villains within the phases, and then as a whole. Of course, the first MCU movie, Iron Man, can be looked at two different ways, but I would classify it as having just one villain. The terrorist group called the Ten Rings that appeared at the start of the movie was actually hired by Obadiah Stane so that he can take control of Stark Industries, connecting the two. In the rest of the Phase 1 movies, that includes The Incredible Hulk, Iron Man 2, Thor, Captain America the First Avenger, and The Avengers, there's one villain. But just like the first Iron Man, a couple can be looked at in two different ways. In Thor and The Avengers, there's room for argument. Loki should be seen as the main villain in Thor, but the Destroyer and Laufey both appear as villains as well. The thing is, Loki is in control and sends both of them. This is why they're included as one, since they don't have different agendas. In The Avengers, there's just Loki, but a background presence of Thanos. Again, they're working together, so one threat. Now into Phase 2, where there's less discrepancy. There are also 6 movies in Phase 2, but whether there is one threat or two is more clear to lay out. Iron Man 3 has Ultra Shkelian, Thor the Dark World has Malekith, Avengers Age of Ultron has Ultron, and Ant-Man has Yellow Jacket. All these focus on just one villain, while Captain America the Winter Soldier and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1 each have 2 threats. While Bucky is technically controlled by Hydra, they present a different level of threat. As for the Guardians, there's Ronan and the Ravagers. As we get into Phase 3 and there are more movies, I'm going to move this along a bit quicker. Captain America Civil War has Zemo and each other, Doctor Strange has Dormammu, the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 has Ego and the Sovereign, Spider-Man Homecoming has the Vulture, Thor Ragnarok has Hela and the Grandmaster, Black Panther has Killmonger, Avengers Infinity War is one of those in-between ones, as there's Thanos and his Black Order, but they're spread out going after different stones. Ant-Man and the Wasp has Ghost and the Black Market Dealers. Captain Marvel has the Skrulls as a villain for some, and then Starforce for the other half. Avengers Endgame has Thanos. And Spider-Man Far From Home has Mysterio. That brings the total to 5 to 6, whether we're counting Thanos and the Black Order together or separate. That means there are 5 to 6 movies in Phase 3 with one villain or threat. Now, we recently ended Phase 4 at the end of 2022, and it consists of 7 films, starting the multiverse saga. There are only 2 movies in this phase that actually have 2 different villains or threats. Shang-Chi and Eternals. Shang-Chi has to deal with his father, Zhu Wenwu, and the Dweller in Darkness, while the Eternals are up against the Deviants and Icarus. Black Widow had Taskmaster, Spider-Man No Way Home had the group of villains working together, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness had the Scarlet Witch, Thor Love and Thunder had Gore, and Black Panther Wakanda Forever had Namor. We're 2 movies into Phase 5 with Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, and both can be seen as having 1 or 2 threats. There's Kang and his sidekick MODOK, except they're mostly on the same side, while Guardians features the High Evolutionary and Adam Warlock. What seems to be present, even if there isn't a second villain in a movie, is at least another force or perspective in the movie. It works when there's more than one thing going on and it all comes together. Let's take Infinity War, for example, since there was a discrepancy there. While Thanos is collecting the Reality Stone and Time Stone alone, and shows up after the Black Order is defeated on Earth, the other members are going after the Mind Stone and Time Stone beforehand, giving us multiple things to think about. Even series work better when there is more than one villain or threat, since they're longer, and there's more time to give us conflicting forces. So to this point, there are more MCU films that have one main villain, but in most of them there are at least multiple groups with conflicting interests. I can see this theme remain as Marvel is very intricate and lots going on, but not too much, makes for an entertaining experience where more from the comics or history can be included. That's all for this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to like and subscribe to stay up to date with the latest from Talking Marvel.